Welcome, everybody, to Stream On. You know, one of the things that we've been talking about over the past year is the number of amazing, psychological thrillers that there are out there. Now, one of the top ones is Acorn's breakout hit, Blood. It is an amazing show, one which in Series 1 took us on one hell of a ride. And now as we gear up for Series 2, there's no reason to think that we're not going to get a different ride. And, one of the joys of Blood is that it is a creation of a young woman who is a very talented writer. And she put together everything the way she wanted it, and it came out well. She happens to be our guest today, along with someone who we have great respect for. He's an outstanding producer. And joining us, of course, is Sophie Petzal, who is the creator and writer of Blood, and Jonathan Fisher, who produces Blood. And guys, I got to tell you, Series 1 was a hell of a ride. It took us in every possible direction. If Series 2 is even close to that, man, we've got another fun ride on our hands. It is a very good, well done, well written psycho thriller.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's we were really delighted with how it performed, because I've never had an original show before. This was my and Jonathan's foray into our own kind of project together. And you're listening to your instincts. You're trying to apply things that you enjoy. We're thinking about huge twists and turns, and you're trying not to make mistakes you've made in the past. All these little things that you've no idea like how it's going to go down. And so we were really overwhelmed by the reception that it had, and how people seem to respond to it.
Yes, I think one of the reasons why you're tired by the end, hopefully in a good way, Jim, is that there's a real intensity to it. One of the things that we were really keen to do with this series was kind of throw out the conventional tropes of the crime genre. So rather than be a wider whodunit with 10 or so suspects, we really wanted to pinpoint that character of Jim, and played by Adrian Dunbar, and ask the question, is he or is he not guilty of murdering his wife? And hopefully, and I think Sophie really pulls this off in the writing, hopefully the viewer will be constantly shifting their perspectives on whether they think he's guilty or not. So one moment he'll do something which will make us think he's guilty, he's nailed on guilty, but then 10 minutes later you'll see something from a different perspective of Jim, and then you'll possibly have some doubt as to your own opinion. So it does feel like it's intense and unrelenting, but hopefully in a really dramatically exciting way.
I think also it just turns on its head so drastically in episode 6. The tone, the pace of it. Even when when it was before it had come out, I got a bunch of my friends to sit down and we watched all 6 episodes in 1 week. And I'd never actually watched it that way. And you just find, thinking about the last episode, that it's training. I think because it's such a you're building up this tension, this sense of foreboding and dread and urgency, and then turn it on its head, so that what you have hopefully is an incredibly satisfying but emotionally poignant, desperately sad, hopefully, ending. And so it just leaves, I think it lingers with you, is the hope.
And surprises you. I think a lot of people were taken aback by the contents of the final episode, which was really rewarding. And in fact, Sophie's just won on Monday night this week a prestigious Writers Guild of Great Britain award for that episode, specifically for the best drama. So we're thrilled with that.
Well, as well you should be. I mean, to be clueless about this, because I got to tell you, like you just said, I mean, I watched it. I pride myself on, really being able to pinpoint things, and I'm like, nope, didn't get that one. And it just keeps. It's it's an interesting emotional roller coaster ride, both for those who watch it and obviously for those who do such a wonderful job acting in it and writing in it and directing and producing it.
Yeah, it's we were very, very lucky with the team that we assembled, and Adrian Dunbar was such a fundamental part of that for us. Even when when I first came up, when we were first talking at the earliest stages about this idea, we were like, okay, so there's a young woman, she thinks her dad has murdered her mum, and the dad is Adrian Dunbar. Like, we were just that was the joke for us, because we loved him so much. We were such huge fans of Line of Duty, and still are, and enormous fans of Adrian, and we were just so lucky, really, that when this thing was, when Virgin and Channel 5 decided to make it, that Adrian that we approached Adrian and that he responded to the script, and that was a dream come true for us. It's sort of it felt like a pipe dream, and there were people who told us that it was a little project like this, a bunch of nobodies really, someone like Adrian Dunbar, but it was
I think it's true to say that this is a project with quite modest origins. It was never never be the biggest budget series going at all, but we were able to back emerging talent. So we backed two relatively new directors who have since gone on to do huge things after the success of the first season of Blood. So one of the I directed a BBC and HBO series, and the other director, Hannah Quinn, who prior to Blood had directed hour-long drama before, went on to direct a Netflix series last year. So there was something really exciting about working. It felt like we were an underdog. It was a show with modest origins that has grown over time. It's sold to over 60 territories now globally. So we're thrilled that it's sort of evolved into something bigger.
And we were so lucky with our partners, the people who supported us and came on board. We've you can work on projects and feel like you're fighting for every decision, and with this we just felt trusted and supported, and it felt like we were working on something that everyone involved in it was incredibly passionate about, and so it always felt, even when you don't know how it's going to be received, you have no idea what people are going to think, you kind of know in your heart that it's a very loved baby, and that you can be very proud of that at the very least. But we were lucky that
I think excitingly, in the current climate of international television drama, there are more and more players entering the game. So our kind of initial commissioners for this project were Virgin Media Television in Ireland, and it was the first 6-part primetime drama that they'd ever made. And it then sold to Channel 5 in the UK, who again were really for the first time in proper mainstream drama, and likewise here with Acorn, who are again at a really exciting part of their journey. So to have those as our key partners, buyers and platforms who really got behind the show, was fantastic for us.
Well, I know that we have a number of fans here in the United States who, picked it up on Acorn and by word of mouth, and then as things grew, it grew like a wildfire, no pun intended. We certainly want the people in Australia to be fine, but it was indeed, it went from what one would call a cult following to very quickly a very popular show for viewers here in the U.S. because, frankly, it's so well done and so well acted that when you watch it, as I said earlier, it grabs you. It doesn't let you go. And part, I would also say, would be the choice that you all came up with of the location. It plays a very interesting role in the show.
Yes, it had actually been several years, or a long time, in fact, since there had been a mainstream 9 o'clock drama set in Ireland, Irish actors. So that was something that viewers around the world felt really refreshing. The intention was always that it would have a global footprint, that it would sell abroad. And I think the combination of something that's so specifically and authentically Irish in terms of the way that these crafted these characters, but is rooted in the family unit, gives it that global relevance, because of course we've all got families. We all recognize tensions between siblings, strained relationships between daughters and sons and their parents. So I think it does feel very distinctive in its Irish setting and character, but at the same time has themes that resonate globally.
Also, you find, so I think the last big show, forgive me if I'm wrong, that was Irish-based with Irish, that people watched, was Love Hate, so stuff like that. The shows that people remember from Ireland are often Dublin set, or if we think about rural, like, Irish stories, it's often very pastoral, it's West Coast, it's beautiful, it's wild seas and rolling hills, and for me, because so much of this story, while I always have to add the caveat that no one in my family has killed anybody, so much of this story was very personal to me, and there was a lot. I talked to my family and with my mum in particular a lot while making this show. For me, a fundamental part of the tone that I wanted to capture came from my memories of the places that I visited and the places where we stayed growing up when we visited family, which was in a county Meath. I always feel like I spent a lot of time slagging off poor old Meath that treated us so wonderfully, and has changed a lot in the last 20 years. But it's the Midlands of Ireland. It's not undulating and with wild seas and a huge tourism industry. It's flat and it's grey and it's boggy, and it's got a very different feel to it. It doesn't, it's when people think of Ireland and TV and film, that's not the picture that they get, and yet it's the picture that for me fed into the story. These little suburban towns are only 50 miles or so outside of Dublin, but have been hit by recession and the collapse of the Celtic Tiger, and obviously all this stuff isn't in the show, but you feel it in their little town, this kind of slightly run down, nowhere place that, it feels so distinctive and idiosyncratic, and that's what I really wanted for the show, because that's what I remembered, and we found these spectacular locations that gave us exactly what we were looking for. But I have to add, I think, for poor old me, that so much of it's incredibly, a lot of it did look beautiful for us, and the house that we had, and these sweeping shots over this beautiful countryside, and we were blessed with a heat wave, which it was one of the few times I think that Ireland have ever experienced a drought, and we were shooting in the middle of a drought, and so we, when you wanted things to look grey and gloomy, they were beautiful and sunlit, but it was perfect and a fantastic setting for us.
Sophie, when you went about creating this, what caused you to jump into this particular show? I mean, into Blood. You're one of the creators. Was this something that you had in mind that you just wanted to bring to the screen?
So, I mean, it's sort of twofold. My mum is Irish. She grew up in Dublin, big Irish Catholic family there. And I grew up with them, often, staying with us or us staying with them, and hearing stories and listening to these adult children, of the same parents, reconvening and swapping stories and arguing and laughing and joking, and me realizing as a kid that they all grew up under the same roof, but had fundamentally different experiences of their childhood and remembered their parents entirely differently. And that's something that always stuck with me, and I always found fascinating. And it's always been a touchstone in stuff I've written, like how adult children perceive their parents in entirely different ways, and what leads to that. What is it that we experience growing up that means even though we share our lives, we have fundamentally different memories of them and experiences of the people in it. And that's always been a point of fascination for me. That's always been something I've been chewing over and trying to find the right idea for. And then cut to 2 or 3 years ago, there's an opportunity for us to develop an idea with an Irish broadcaster. I'd been thinking about this territory for a while. I've been talking to Jonathan about this territory for a while. And we'd also been thinking about, how do we throw, as Jonathan said before, how do we throw out the kind of the crime drama tropes and tell a kind of non-police crime. And it's like all those suddenly fit together in this sort of great moment of synergy. And it was like, well, I can bring all this stuff that I've been thinking about, and here's this idea that I've came up with over the course of one conversation. A young woman who thinks her dad may be responsible for her mum's death, and that idea, that territory, and then this brief that was presented to us all sort of fit in, and that was where it was born, really.
So where do we go from here?
Well,
we always had an idea of how we'd like the second season to look. I think we knew that season 1 was going to have quite a finite resolution, and you'd discover the truth of what happened. We therefore didn't want to go into season 2 and just drag out and reanalyze what had gone before. We wanted it to feel new and fresh, and we wanted it to have a brand new mystery that for the viewer would be every bit as engaging as the one in the first season. So we've absolutely kept familiar elements, such as several of the characters. So Adrian Dunbar's character is once again at the heart of it, but we've made it feel new at the same time. So going into the second season, the character under scrutiny this time is the character Fiona, who's the sister cat in season 1. We loved Gráinne Keenan's performance in season 1, but she was more of a supporting player than what she is now. And I think because we knew that this was the direction we were going to take before we even started shooting season 1, Sophie carefully held back on certain elements of Fiona's character. So there's a lot about her that's inscrutable, and there's a lot of her kind of truths and secrets that will be unearthed as we move forward. So hopefully it will satisfy the fans of the first season, but at the same time it will feel fresh and new.
Look, I'm sure with the talent that you guys have put together, there's no question that we will not be disappointed. One last question for you both. Now that we have, as you had mentioned, you've gotten partners. We have Acorn here in the U.S. Bringing us outstanding programming from the UK, from Canada, from Australia, New Zealand. This really, in some regards, for folks who are producers, creators, writers, this is kind of like a new golden age of TV with the new streaming services and so many of them. And one of the great things about Acorn is that we can get your show, Blood, almost in real time from the standpoint of we used to have to wait years before we could see, outstanding television from around the world. But now with the Acorn and other streaming services, we have that option, which is amazing. But from a creator standpoint, it gives you yet another opportunity that just 5 years ago wasn't there.
Totally, and it does present to people like us so many. It means that we can come up with the things we're passionate about and stick to our guns on certain decisions. But I feel like only 5 or 6 years ago, it was, particularly in the UK, if you were not an enormously famous, successful person who can sell anything to anyone at that stage, had one of 3 options, and your idea had to either fit mold A, B, or C. And now it feels almost, it's a bit like a seller's market. Like here's the idea, here's the tone, here's how we feel about it, and who wants to make it. And obviously it doesn't always work so smoothly, but it feels like there are so many opportunities and so many avenues interested in content that you can really just come up with the best thing that you want to come up with and tell the stories that you're really burning to tell in the way that you want to tell them, and you don't have to fit any particular kind of mold now. You can go anywhere, and ideas and stories are becoming so global, and I think through telling stories to each other across the globe, we're realizing how many things are in fact completely universal and interesting to all of us, and that we have more in common, and so we could, the Brits are in love with Danish crime drama, which is something that like 15 years ago you'd have gone, what? And I think that's fantastic, and it just means that more creators are creating the things that they love, and hopefully audiences are also getting more of the things that they love.
Special thanks to Sophie and to Jonathan. We'll continue our conversation about Blood with Adrian Dunbar right after this from BMW i3, the ultimate electric driving machine.
Life is about making decisions. At BMW i, we decided it was time to reinvent the car from the ground up, making sure we were open for truly innovative ideas. We decided that the car we wanted must be electric, and it should be made of extremely light, and super strong carbon fiber. And finally, we decided to make it more intelligent and added our promise of incomparable driving pleasure. We made all these decisions to offer you a choice. The all-electric BMW i3.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, as we said before the break, we're going to talk to Adrian Dunbar, who, of course, plays Dr. Jim Hogan on Blood, but we, of course, know him from his work on Line of Duty and other projects. Adrian, it's great to have you. Let's talk about Series 2 of Blood, which has become a phenomenal hit right here in the U.S. on Acorn TV.
I mean, we were just saying that, I was just saying people really love the show. It's so easy to talk about a show that people really get. They get it and they really love it. So that it's a joy coming out here to do this. It really is.
You know, it's funny. Earlier in the day, I spoke with Sophie and with Jonathan, and the first thing out of their mouths were, you know what, when we were putting this project together, we took a shot and we asked to see if Adrian would do it. As the moment he said yes, they said that they were acting like little kids on Christmas.
Well, you know what? One of the great things was that, as an actor, you always realize that you're kind of fourth or fifth or even sixth choice.
Right.
But the guys just sent me the script and said, that's it. We just, we're offering it to you and that's it. And we want you to do it. And that's a really wonderful thing for an actor when you know that, they've written something and they've really got you in mind. And so I sat down to read it and I thought, oh God, I hope this is good, because that's such a sweet thing to do. And when I finished it, I rang my agent and said, look, we're going to do this. This is really good. We're going to get on it. We're going to do it. And, and we've got a great working relationship, the three of us, and we worked on the script together. And, it's been fantastic. I'm really proud of the fact that we, it's a very small company, just putting something together like this that comes out of left field, it's coming out of Dublin. It's not, they don't do a lot of drama there for whatever reason. And suddenly this little show has caught people's imagination. Channel 5 took the show in England and they've managed to nearly reposition themselves as a channel on the back of it. And then Acorn TV picked it up, and hey presto, it's doing really well in the US as well. So I'm really excited and proud of that, being able to do that.
The role of Dr. Jim Hogan is such a meaty role. I can see where it would, it would definitely appeal to an actor of your caliber.
Oh, absolutely. There's some wonderful things to do, wonderful things to play. And one of the things, Jim, it's that thing of, Sophie wrote the thing, so you're seeing everything from Kat's perspective. You're seeing everything from her perspective. So it's a very particular job when you know that the whole thing is being, the 5 episodes leading up to episode 6 is being seen from her perspective. So you've got to do two things. On the one hand, you've got to do enough for the audience to believe that she's right. And on the other hand, and this is happening in every scene, you've got to do enough in the scene for the audience to think, yeah, but maybe not.
Right.
And so that was a real tricky dance for me. And I had to work hard with Sophie to make sure that we didn't push it too far one way or the other, so that by the time we get to episode 6, it's a real payoff for the audience and they can look back and go, oh yeah, right, I get it. I see why he was like that, or I see why he did that. Yeah, okay, it makes sense. I was really keen that when we got to that 6th episode, that it would make sense for the audience and that, they would get a real payoff. And they would go, okay, right, now we get it. And so, so that was a meaty role and technically difficult to do. And I really enjoyed it. The next series is completely different. It's a more narrative familiar way of shooting, and it's a more linear narrative, and you just see you're inside Jim's head, you're inside Fiona's head. Grania Keenan does a fantastic job as Fiona, his other daughter, and basically it's kind of her story this time rather than Kat's story. So, and Jim's there and he's trying to do his best as usual. He's been away for a year. Do you want me to talk a little bit, Jim, about season 2?
Well, by all means. I mean, season 1. Go ahead.
Yeah. So season 2, he's been away for a year. He can't work really as a doctor. He's trying to get work. He can't get work, but he wants to help his daughter in some way. He gets to stay on the estate that they live on, where her husband is the farm manager. You've seen Ep 1, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So you know the background to that, but it's that family gathering where they're all sitting around for dinner, and he's trying to explain to them that their son may be doing something that's a little illegal, and suddenly they kind of knock him down and say, look, just stay out of it. And I think that pushes a button in him where he thinks, my integrity is being called into question again, and I've had enough of that. And I'm going to prove to these people that there is something going on. And of course, he goes up, he busts into that garage, and then he opens a can of worms, and there's no going back after that. Everything starts to fall apart. And so, the other thing is that there's big secrets. His daughter is keeping things from him, that if he knew about them, things would be completely different. He would take a different attitude to things and attitude to the people around him. But she doesn't tell him that because she can't tell him that because she's hiding something as well. So it's the dynamic, the family dynamic again from like series 1, where people aren't opening up and talking to one another and telling one another because they're protecting one another, they think.
Right.
So that's what Sophie is great at writing. I think that's very powerful. And I think the thing about family dramas that's great is that we're all experts. We've all been in a family. We all know how things work. We all know why people kind of resent one another or love one another, because that's what happens in a family, So I think that's where the power of it lies.
It's funny. When watching this, I drew a parallel because I thought, it's it's one of those dramas that you're exhausted whenever it's over. After you've watched it, in a good way, because it has really made you think, and it has really made it's challenged you. And I thought, the only thing that I could draw a parallel to was Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad. That Jim Hogan is a clever man and a good man, and it's just so intense. All of this inner family situations, as you say, we all are experts in inner family. And I think that's one of the key things is that, you've got the family perspective, but each character kind of takes you down a path and you're like, okay, I'm going with you. And you have no idea where you're going.
Yeah.
But that's okay. As a viewer, that's okay. Because you're trusting the characters to take you.
Yes, that's an extremely insightful and slightly spooky that you should say that, because I've been using Breaking Bad as a kind of way of explaining series 2 insofar as people change because of circumstance.
Right.
Their character changes. When you've been put through something, things toughen you up. You get less sensitive to things when stuff starts to happen to you, and you have to deal with it, and that's kind of what's happening to Jim's character, I think. So that's a very good analogy with Bryan Cranston. I think it's that is what's happening with him, and I'm hoping if Sophie's going to write a third series that we'll push the boat out even further, but your point about trusting the characters to take you there and sticking with the characters because they've got a level of believability and honesty about them is a really significant point. I'm going to probably use that myself when I'm talking to people
Feel
about
free.
the show.
Feel
Thank
free.
you, Jim.
You're welcome to take it. You know,
Thank you, Jim.
I know we're getting ready here to kind of wrap things up, but you know, one of the great things about Acorn is that we here in the United States are able to watch shows like Blood, and of course The Line of Duty, which is another one of my favorites, and so many great things almost in real time. In the old days, it would take 2-3 years for it to get here. Now with Acorn, you can get it in a very reasonable, short period of time, and it does open up the world to the good, the best drama from wherever it may come from, and I think that's been very helpful. As you know, those of us who just enjoy watching good television, it doesn't matter where it comes from, but that's one of the great things about the new streaming services like Acorn and others who've delivered the kind of outstanding work that you guys do in a very well packaged way that we can, watch it whenever we get the chance.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are living in, I'm just over 60, and we are living in a real golden era for TV. There's no doubt about it. We're seeing, television has gone to another level within the last 12 to 15 years. The quality of it, the quality of the writing, how it's shot, it's just a different animal entirely, and it's just great to be in there amongst it and running with it at this period. So it's fantastic, and the other thing is, I think, Jim, I don't know if you agree with this, but we speak the same language, and we're really fascinated by each other's cultures. I mean, in the UK and in Ireland particularly, we've always been fascinated by America because we know we've had an influence on it, and I think conversely, people in the US are in, they're watching Morse. There he is in Oxford. What a crazy place Oxford looks like. I mean, it looks like it's kind of, a Disney set, right? Except with cars driving all over it. But but I think we are fascinated by each other's cultures, and it's just great that we're trading these fabulous TV shows with one another. I just think it's great.
I agree. I had an Irish grandfather and a Welsh grandmother. So
wow. That's a good combination. That's an excellent combination.
It was a fascinating one, but
yeah.
But the world's getting smaller, and one of the great things, I'm about the same age as you, so we share that same age, and I just I'm happy that people like yourself and good drama like the stuff that you guys are producing is something we get to consume and enjoy and relish, and keep up the good work. Sophie promised me she's going to do a season 3, and if so, we would love to chat with you whenever you get the chance. It's always fantastic. A pleasure, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much for all your kind words. I appreciate it.
Special thanks to Adrian Dunbar and the entire team of Blood. All the information on Blood, which is a Acorn original, streaming here in the United States, Series 2, just beginning. By all means, check it out. Highly recommend. We will be back with more about what's coming up on Stream On right after this from BMW i3, the ultimate electric driving machine.
Life is about making decisions. At BMW i, we decided it was time to reinvent the car from the ground up, making sure we were open for truly innovative ideas. We decided that the car we wanted must be electric, and it should be made of extremely light and super strong carbon fiber. And finally, we decided to make it more intelligent and added our promise of incomparable driving pleasure. We made all these decisions to offer you a choice. The all-electric BMW i3.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, if you're not one of the over 50,000 people who have taken the time to subscribe to our podcast, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we make it free. Okay, it's simple. Go to the Apple Podcast Store. That's where we're at. You also find us at Google, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, as well as TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and YouTube, to name a few. Now, for some reason you can't find us, pull out the old Google machine, type in Stream On with Jim Williams, hit the favorite button or the subscribe button, and each week you get a brand new edition of the podcast sent directly to your phone, your tablet, or to both. Okay? We make it simple, folks, so please go out and do that today. Big announcement coming up in March. Okay, keep an eye out for this. We will have a live show every Saturday at noon. That's every Saturday at noon. You will be able to hear us on WWBA Radio. That's WWBA Radio, Florida's News Talk Superstation. And also stream live worldwide on TuneIn Entertainment. So you can catch our entire 1 hour each week where we're going to talk about what's going on in the streaming world. And we will play all of the interviews of our podcasts during that time. So if you happen to want to listen to us live, starting in March, we'll give you all that information coming up. We will be on live nationally and internationally, noon Eastern time on WWBA, and all that will be in our show box below starting in March. Okay, so keep an eye out for that. Special thanks, everyone, to our guests this week. And of course, that's the team that brought us one of the best new psycho thrillers in the business, and that, of course, is Blood. It is a smash hit on Acorn. We highly recommend. Special thanks to Sophie Petzal. And of course, she's the one who wrote and created the series. And Jonathan Fisher, who is the producer. We also had the pleasure of chatting with the star of the show, Adrian Dunbar, who, as we said, many of you know from Line of Duty. So great stuff they do. It is an outstanding show. Highly recommend. As I said, all the information on Blood is in our show box below. Be sure to check it out. Okay, everybody. Now, next week, we decided to take a shot at going out and having some fun with the folks at Agatha Raisin. You know that we love the people out there at Agatha Raisin. It's a fun show. And next week, we're going to be talking to the executive producer of Agatha Raisin. That's Barry Ryan. And we're also going to be talking to Matt McCooey. And Matt, of course, is the guy who plays DC Bill Wong on the show, who's part of the Scooby Gang that Agatha's put together. And Series 3 is on Acorn. So we're going to be talking to those guys next week. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So please join us then. So for the entire team here at Stream On, I'm Jim Williams, thanking you for your time. We look forward to seeing you next week when we talk all things Agatha Raisin right here on Stream On.